Sorry, I thought it was a one-man panel. I'm supposed to invite the panelists to join me to the stage, so please, Commissioner Kos and Prime Minister Rama and Prime Minister Mickoski, would you join me? So good morning, everyone. I'm Majda Ruge, Senior Policy Fellow at the European Council on Foreign Relations in Berlin. This morning we're discussing EU enlargement, which used to be a European project. But it seems that it became so popular that America is embracing it as well. It's floating the idea of at least 2.5 new member states, including parts of Panama. Of course, the Trump administration and the EU will likely have very different enlargement methodologies. So the European enlargement remains a topic on its own. On a more serious note, I do feel that it's very difficult to discuss enlargement today in isolation of what is going on in the US and with the US position in the world. What that means for the EU and by extension for the EU enlargement. We have a great lineup of speakers here, starting from my right with Prime Minister Edi Rama of Albania. We have been upgraded to the main stage from last year when we were in town hall. Next, the Prime Minister of North Macedonia, Hristijan Mickoski, and last but not least, Marta, the EU Enlargement Commissioner, or Commissar, as Vice President Vance would put it. Prime Minister Rama, you know the coffee drill. For the two of you, there is a Munich rule coined by the Munich Security Conference. We have little time, so please keep your statement short and strong like espresso. I will start by posing a couple of questions to you, Commissioner Kos. And I hope you gentlemen won't mind going a couple of times to Commissioner Kos at the beginning so that we get her vision on enlargement and also how you intend to overcome some of the political and financial challenges that you will face. I do not think that in my lifetime, adult lifetime, Europe and its member states have faced greater risks on security and economy, and yet at the same time have been exposed and have faced so many simultaneous demands and expectations in terms of investing into competitiveness, stepping up rapidly on security and defense, providing security guarantees for Ukraine, delivering on China, and at the same time, we have US Vice President delivering remarks here, attacking EU democracy. And so you would think that in this situation, the EU needs to focus on these challenges and kind of go smaller because it needs to maintain coherence and unity. Yet you and President of the Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, have both said that we need to accelerate the process. So why now? Why at this very moment do you think we need to accelerate enlargement, given what is going on in the world?
The enlargement today is not affected just by what the US are doing. It is affected by geopolitics. And when my country, Slovenia, entered the EU, if I simplify it, it was quite easy in the sense of if a country fulfills the criteria, it can get in. Later, it became more difficult in the sense of the member states have to go deeper than we will enlarge. But today we have a specific situation. Then we have disruptive external forces who would like to see us fail. So it is clear the priority, I wouldn't speak about just the enlargement, it's unification of Europe. That's why it is getting more and more important. And again, when my country joined, mostly we have seen this through the economic glasses. But today we go with the enlargement today. we somehow go back to the roots why the EU has been established. It has been established to preserve peace, freedom, security, prosperity. Now we go back to security and to peace. And this is the most decisive element. But this is also the strength of the EU. You have mentioned security guarantees. The enlargement can be the most important political element of the security guarantees. And, you know, there is a reason why the countries would love to join European Union and not United States of America, if I go back to your beginning. And it's clear also that there are some trends from the north of Europe with the countries which are on the very high level of the rule of law, which are very much involved into the European economic area and are considering or reconsidering coming back.
Thank you. We'll go back to Prime Minister Rama on this US versus EU question later. Sorry, I will just kind of come back one more time to the question of enlargement again, and I stress in this really extremely challenging moment. You have tweeted, and Commissioner von der Leyen has basically spoke and stated a similar message at the Munich Security Conference that we need to accelerate the process. Von der Leyen has spoken about moving mountains, and you mentioned accelerated but still merit-based process. It seems to be contradiction in terms, accelerated yet still merit-based, especially when we're talking about countries like Ukraine that's in the middle of the war, but also countries like Bosnia and Herzegovina, Moldova, or Serbia and Kosovo that are in the negotiation process. So could you unpack that a little bit? How do you balance the speed and merit? And what is really your vision for Ukraine? And what does acceleration mean? Do you mean blade timelines, or do you mean even sooner? Is that even possible?
We are already accelerating the process, especially with Ukraine. We are working 2 to 3 times faster in the European Union. But we should distinguish between the technical part of the process and the political part of the process. When it's about the technical one, we could, let's say, finish with Montenegro and Albania until the end of 26 or 27. There is the political part, meaning that no steps or important steps can happen without the will of the member states. So this is where I see the possibilities today. For the technical part, where I am in charge of, we can deliver a lot, not just for Ukraine, also for the Western Balkan countries. But we should really talk to, and we are talking to the member states, what we can do. It is merit-based, the technical part, but there is also the political will. And this geopolitics I was talking at the beginning about, it's playing an important role. Some people, you know, see the discrepancy or paradox between geopolitics and merit-based. Or some people see the discrepancy between economic development and values. Why do we demand, you know, sticking to anti-corruption and so on? So, in my opinion, we can do much more if we consider this situation seriously. And one remark to your first question, you know, the EU can bring the candidate countries in the EU, not the United States of America.
Thank you. I'll come back with some follow-up questions later. I think the way I see you right now is like a CEO visionary that has to get the shareholders or member states on board, so we can talk about how you do that later. 26, 27 seems like an extremely ambitious timeline for Albania joining the EU. Do you think that's feasible? You have opened 2 clusters now, that is 7 chapters. You've moved now obviously faster than Serbia has. They've been stuck since 2021 with not opening anything new. Do you think that's feasible?
Well, what I know is that when we started this process, my hairs were all black and my beard was much more trimmed. But being big fan of Netflix. I'd say that after what I saw in these 2 days under this roof, which was amazing, Netflix could do 2 series, one about EU, one about US. The one about the EU would be a patient with 27 doctors, and they were 28, by the way, but one got crazy and left the hospital. And US would be a one sheriff show. So I think what is happening is really a great, great thing, at least as I see it from that part of Europe that is not EU. So we are E without U, and we see things a bit differently. It's a great, great thing that happened. Europe needed to be shaken in a way that its sleep would go lost for some time. And now let's see what will come out of that. And going back to your question, I think that European Union has to make its mind about what's going on, because it has changed in terms of attitude towards us, and it has changed in terms of speed towards rapprochement with the Western Balkans. But what is happening is showing that it has changed too slow and too little. And we can talk about merit base all day long, but I think it's time to make a very fast and clear-cut separation. Merit-based should be for only one thing: the right to vote in the European Council. It can't be about merit-based. Can't be about bringing all the non-EU countries in the single market. Merit-based can't be about bringing all non-EU countries in the whole operation.
Are you saying there shouldn't be? What are you saying exactly? That there shouldn't be a criteria on sort of legislative alignment, etc., for the EU single market, or?
I think this can be completely now speeded up, and can be much more about how to bring that part of Europe, which is not the European Union, much closer to a different way the continent thinks about itself. Because when we think about the continent as a whole, without Russia, we are 700 million. So it's a huge market. And the European Union has to do something about it, in the sense that what is out of the European Union cannot be up for grab for everyone else but for the European Union. This is what I mean. And the Western Balkans should be seen like the tech park of Europe, in the sense of it's where a lot of things can happen, like a lot of things happened in Poland, in Czech Republic, in Slovakia and other countries, when the Western companies went there, invested a lot, brought a lot of dividend back in the European Union, and helped these countries to go up in a very, very impressive speed. So this is what I'm saying. There is a lot to change. Europe is not me saying, everyone says it. Mario Draghi made a damning report that Europe has to change or to die. So it's about competitiveness, it's about getting out there with a new strength, and it's about not trying to respond to ourselves, to be just self-referential, to think that we have a divine decree for keeping the moral high ground and all the other are morally suspect. Because for example, we in the Western Balkans are morally suspect. But to be much more capable to adopt to the new challenges.
So if I can interpret you,
I saw a lot of victims today, yesterday, the day before yesterday, a lot of people feeling like like, you know, something went terribly wrong, but it's not true. It's not true. It's a great opportunity to wake up and to run and to take back what has been lost in so many years of so much regulation, of so much talks, and of so far less actions.
So you've merged both the EU internal reform, competitiveness, and sort of what you're arguing for is a quicker accession to the single market over the Western Balkans, really kind of releasing other.
Not only Western Balkans, everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone
okay.
in the continent, all the EPC, the European political community, should become now the new platform, and the European Union should invest on a lot of thoughts, a lot of its energies on the EPC, and Europe as such should become a very, very different continent based on, first and foremost, giving to everyone new opportunities to grow economically and to be in a better place. Otherwise, it will be impossible.
Thank you. Prime Minister Mickoski, welcome. You became Prime Minister in June last year, and since then, North Macedonia has not opened a single new cluster or chapter with the EU. You've obviously, for a very long time, together with Albania, but specifically North Macedonia, been blocked and a victim of sort of bilateral disputes. And part of the requirement that exists now is the constitutional change to include Bulgarian minorities in the preamble of the constitution. You have proposed adopting these changes in the parliament, the constitutional changes, but for them to enter into force once the North Macedonia enters the EU. Bulgaria has rejected this. What is your plan? How do you intend to proceed? How will you tackle this? And do you still see the EU path as priority?
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be on the stage with this lovely lady and the gentleman, and of course with you. It's my honor. Our endeavor when it comes to the enlargement and accession to EU started much more prior Albanian endeavor. Even we started our journey even prior Croatia. And we've become, together with Croatia, 2 decades ago, candidates. We received first report together with Croatia in 2008 to start negotiations. Now Croatia is for almost 10 years a part of the EU, part of Schengen. They're using euro as a national currency. And we are at the same place where we were 2.5 decades ago. Why? Because for us, merit base is a bit of a fairy tale. It's not like, how to say, it's not like something that we would like to see. It's something that is binding for us. And therefore, I think that this fairy tale for us seems like a moving target. We are a victim of bilateralization, or to be more precise, our journey to EU is very, very complex. Because instead of bringing Europe to Balkan, we are somehow bringing Balkan to Europe. There are some, unfortunately, European member countries which are coming from Balkan, and they are bringing bilateral disputes together with them in Brussels, instead of bringing Brussels values to the Balkans.
I'm sorry, because we don't have that much time. Can I return you to my question? We are all aware of the sort of long history and all of the efforts North Macedonia has done, including changing its name. But this concrete step that needs to be done is a precondition to open first clusters and chapters. What are you going to do about it?
The name was not only one example of interference into the domestic issues of sovereign country. That was last one. The first one was, let me remind you, change of flag.
Can we please go to the question? We have very little time. I need to move on with the questions.
If we want to give a precise answer, then we have to have some introduction.
No, but I think everyone knows the history of blockages. What we need to look is a little bit, where are we going? And what do you think?
Our milestone is and will remain to become a part of EU. And this is without any doubt. Please consider this
I
as
told
done.
her last time in the panel, if you invite Balkan men, don't ask from them to be short.
Talk to, especially when they're so tall. But we are limited by embassy rules, not by my own. I'd love to hear you talk more.
I'm listening some voices here that there was a speech during the first day, during the opening, from the Vice President J.D. Vance, and I'm hearing some voices that that was a speech with huge interference in some of the domestic issue. Change of name, change of flag, change of currency, what is it? Isn't it interference into the domestic issues? How long we should suffer from double standards?
Right.
And we are not talking, again, I will say, we are not talking about merit-based approach. We are talking about bilateral disputes, which is not something which should be shared and joined with the European values. Okay,
Commissioner Klaus, I'm going to ask you, is EU ready to, because Bulgaria has said that's now the EU issue, but the proposal for the amendments to enter into force when Macedonia enters the EU, it sounds like a reasonable one. Is EU ready to negotiate on that?
Bulgaria and North Macedonia are already speaking about it. We have offered help if would be needed to facilitate. It's never good when bilateral issues come in, but it's happening again and again. And that is what I was talking before, and I can understand the frustration. You know, the new dynamics into the whole enlargement process came by war in Ukraine. Or even, if I go a bit back, by the wish of Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia at that time to go European and not the Russian way. We will always have to deal, unfortunately, with a bilateral issue. But my vision is, if it's possible, please, and we will help to settle this outside the enlargement process, which is not easy. You know, at the beginning I was speaking about the role of the member states in the whole process. But I think this is really now time that we move forward, not just with North Macedonia. It's time to move forward also with Bosnia. It's time to move forward in the dialogue between Belgrade and Pristina. When, if not now, when it's obvious why, and whatever we do in the enlargement or unification process of Europe, we really shouldn't forget to give the answer. Why are we doing this? Not just because the candidate countries want to join us, but also we would like them to be a part of the European Union, and I can go back to peace and security.
On member states, since we're talking about interference, blockages, etc., that is part of sort of my initial question: how do you get member states on board for your vision, which is very ambitious if you're talking about 26, 27 for Albania and Montenegro. We're facing potential trade war with the US that is threatening to shave off from 1.5 to 2.5% GDP of some biggest European economies. We desperately need capital to invest in defense and competitiveness. German Chancellor Scholz yesterday argued for accession of the Ukraine, but at the same panel he said that when he speaks to member states leaders, they all say it's impossible currently to find funds for defense, and we've seen which way we need to go. The costs for Ukraine in the next multi-annual financial framework are around 186 billion, 250 billion in total for all 8. How are we going to fund this, and how will you persuade member states to get on board financially?
We don't know yet how the next multi-annual financial framework will look like, but what I can say is that until the end of the present MFF, the money is not the issue. And the European Union has been the biggest contributor to Ukraine, two times more than the US, with more now nearly 140 billion EU member states. So we can deliver if we stick together, and this is now a clear option to us, and we are able also now to be a part of the peace talks, we are able to be a part, and we are running the reconstruction already. Mr. Costa was yesterday speaking about 3 points important for the future of Ukraine. The first part is security guarantees. I was talking before, enlargement as political element of this. Second part is reconstruction. We are already doing this. Third part is accession process. We are already doing this. So we are delivering much more. But here in Munich, mostly we speak about the military part.
Well, 1,300-kilometer long border with Russia, where America has said they're not intending to provide any security guarantees, is a big challenge.
Of course, and we know this, and we are working on this. The European Union has been able to find solution to unimaginable problems in the past, and perhaps we needed this push too. And I hear all the time, yeah, we should ask what we can do by ourselves, in spite of what they are doing. But I agree, you know, getting the decision when you have 27 members, or getting a decision when just one man is taking the decision, you know what is more difficult.
Thank you. I'll ask all three of you the same question. I'm curious how you see it. U.S. has traditionally always been very supportive of EU enlargement, and in fact, most of the sort of policies and instruments of the EU, of the U.S. have very often been put in kind of complementary way to the enlargement process and generally promotion of EU norms and values. We see a big reversal now. With the Trump administration. USAID projects abolished many of around 1.6 billion funds that had been provided, many of them supporting projects that actually work towards achievement of the EU goals, but also heavy lifting, hard power, sanctions, etc., to deter destabilization of Bosnia by Milorad Dodik, or, you know, go after money laundering, corruption, etc. If that is withdrawn, which is a possibility, do you think that's going to present a problem for the enlargement? Is it going to present a problem for your countries in meeting the criteria? And perhaps for you, Commissioner, how will the EU step in?
What I see is that since you have started to deal with Balkan people, your questions have become very long. And I don't know now what part of your question I have to answer, because there were a lot of questions in your question, but I'll try. First of all, I think there is a paradox that looks like nobody thinks about, because there is this rush. We have to invest on defense, we have to upscale defense, we have to do defense, and we have to match defense. Okay, good, but what's the answer about, in the meantime, that other powers invest in defense? They have quite reasonable rates of economic growth. Europe is not. So where Europe will find the money to do all this upscale in defense? And I have never heard anything more shocking, anything more traumatizing, anything more crazy, that we have to leave aside education, healthcare, and the rest, because now our priority is to survive. So if the answer to have more investment, to have more strength militarily, is to become a continent of ignorance, I think we are not worth anymore to anything, and better someone come invade us.
Well, Albania is investing quite a lot.
Albania has been always ready to be invaded by Americans or Europeans, but the problem is that nobody wants to invade us. So
you're still doubling your defense spending.
Nobody wants to invade us. And if they invade us, we send them to Montenegro to have some fun and sun. So the second point I have to make is connected to the first. So Europe has to think twofolds. Yes, stronger militarily, but stronger economically, and stronger in the whole challenges that are about the future. So, America invents artificial intelligence. China copied it. Europe, without even having it, regulated. So, how we will compete, for God's sake? And then we are in this process. It's clear that Europe has opened a discussion, and thanks God, President von der Leyen is taking it very, very personally to start a deregulation. Good luck to her with that. But in the meantime, they say to us, regulate, regulate, regulate. So how this will go on? So it's like an inertia, because there are, from my experience, I have known two European Unions. One, the one that everyone knows, the European Union of leaders, of big discussions, sometimes of big debates, sometimes of big neurotic processes, and another European Union that works like a Swiss clock, 24/7, 30 or 40,000 people producing every day, I don't know how many regulations. So no war, no crisis, no climate change, no nuclear threat can change the way this clock works. It's perfect. Every day, a new regulation comes out.
What are you referring to exactly?
What I'm referring to, ask the business community in Germany, and
so
they'll tell you.
Yeah, you're referring to the business side of the EU.
To open a bank account in Europe today, a bank account, for God's sake, has become more complicated than to buy a house.
I meant the Swiss
and there
side
are
of
so
it.
many other things like that. And the last thing I would say is, it's not, this enlargement has always been treated like a kind of generosity, like a kind of generous vision of the richest in this continent towards the poorest. I'm telling you, today the European Union needs us more than we need them. Trust me on that. And when I say us, not just the Western Balkans, but all the countries that are not yet part of that union. Why?
Because you will regulate them.
Why? More than not, don't take it arrogantly, because we are used to survive. We are survivors. So whatever happens, we'll be around. That's why, that's why the Greeks and us fight always who is the oldest in this continent. Because we have seen many coming and going. The problem is, if European Union wants to get out of all this crisis, has to unite with Europe. And as Dr. Kissinger said, America without Europe is just an island. Europe without America is just a peninsula. So that island and this peninsula have to be together. But for the sheriff in that island to take seriously European Union has to become stronger, and numbers to the sheriff matter. So we should show up at the sheriff door like a market of 700 million. Otherwise, we are doomed to end like the priests in Constantinople, that while the walls of the city were falling, they had a very important discussion about the sex of angels.
Thank you, Prime Minister Rama. Its message is clear. We will, in a minute, open to questions and answers. We only have 10 minutes left, so I apologize. I just want to hear from Commissioner Kos, do you worry about the impact on the EU enlargement, especially in democracy, rule of law, the impact of the changes in the US approach to what is good governance and what needs to be funded?
No, I'm not afraid of, and I'm happy that Albania still wants to become a member in spite of the critics we have heard right now about the European Union.
What do you mean?
So I'm not a...
We are still...
Prime Minister Rama, you're...
No,
I need to
this
go.
I don't accept, because we are still in love with the European Union. While the members of the European Union are not in love with the European Union, we are in love with the European Union. So you should get us in because we bring love. What do you mean? European Union is the best thing that could happen to the humanity.
Thank you, and I truly believe it. And everything you ask is in the Article 2 of the European Treaty. It's about our values, it's about human rights, it's about rights of the minorities, and I could go on. That's why I strongly believe that we are really, really powerful. Asking for a membership is optional. Once you have the status, you get some obligations and commitments. And my commitment is also to help the candidate countries. I would really love to see being successful as a European Union, that Albania, Montenegro, perhaps some other countries will come to the finish line of the accession process. But EU is changing itself too. You know, we are doing the pre-enlargement review to see what we have to change inside the EU that will be capable of running the house when the newcomers will come. I was speaking about the security. They already are contributing. You are all contributing, the candidate countries, to the security of Europe. You already are contributing to our competitiveness. You know, with the gradual integration, enabling you to be a part of our internal market is already happening, and you are doing well in Albania. Congratulations, and I want to see more results. You know, he is usually not that critical to me when we speak bilaterally, but I can't wait, you know, to come to Tirana to get some more advices for you. I will even swim in the sea if you say so, that this is needed for the good relations to the EU.
I'm going to open to questions now.
Because you are an Olympic champion on swimming, it's not difficult for you. The problem is how to make Brussels swim.
Well, or member states. We have 8 minutes left for questions. I apologize to Prime Minister Mickoski for not getting back to you with another question, but hopefully we'll have some from the audience. We also have an addressed question of Serbia and the protests, but maybe that will come. I see High Representative Christian Schmidt raising his hand. Please do better than I did with the length of the question. You've heard the criticism, so please keep it short.
Thank you. Prime Minister Rama, she is a well-experienced Bosnian, and so I think she knows as well how one can limit the length of the questions, but the questions themselves, I think they remain very important. Thank you for your information, discussion, position about European Union enlargement. I think it's definitely the way for European integration to be the Western Balkans have included. Let me talk about Western Balkans.
Don't talk about Western Balkans. Ask a question, please, because we only have 7 minutes. The question
is...
He is Bosnian. He is a German that is Bosnianized.
Thank you. Thank you for defense.
Exactly.
We have 3 countries already in NATO. We have, of the 6, 3, some applying, some in between. How do you see the possibility of giving security structures in these countries? And the second, if you allow me, referring to Jean-Claude Juncker, who has proposed to have an idea of a partial membership. The Austrians have raised the proposal of having a graduate approach in combining what you said, the political need to be clear but true strategically, and the merit-based challenges where I and we can talk about situations in Bosnia and other countries. So how do we solve this urgency against the clearness and correctness of integration? Thank you.
Do we have another question before we go back to the panel? There's one over there in the back. So if I could summarize, if I understood you correctly, you're asking who is your question directed to about security structures being...
Ardian Hajkai, Tirana Connectivity Forum. To both Prime Ministers, I like this idea of turning the tables. And my question is, how can Western Balkans help and contribute to the European Union?
How can Western Balkans?
contribute to European Union competitiveness, security, anything?
Yeah.
Turning the tables.
So what are you bringing to the EU? I think that's all we've been talking about this entire time, isn't it? You're going to cut the red tape and to deregulate and bring the
less
resilience.
boredom to start with, and I would summarize because time is flying away by saying, to combine both questions, that the election of Donald Trump is the most generous act of God, if we follow the God narrative, towards the European Union, to give to Europe a very big chance to wake up. And Europe has to first not be so self-referential. I fully agree with Marta that the values, the principles, and what keeps the member states together should stay, but should not be in the meantime conditionalities for having friends in this world. So I had a debate yesterday with a German friend in the panel when he said the foreign minister of Germany and foreign minister of France went to Syria and they said to the Syrian guy, if you do this, this and that, we can be friends. No, we should learn to be friends with others, although they might have different values, they might have different ways of thinking how life should go. And the last thing I have is that Europe should think about both strength and competitiveness. If we will not be able to compete economically, we'll not be able to do anything else. This is and Western Balkans are a land of opportunity for this European Union to see a horizon for investments and for the old technology companies to not leave Europe because they cannot invest because it's overregulated, but to come to the Western Balkans, to go to other parts of the continent and bring the dividend home instead of leaving the money outside the continent.
Follow kind of Jared Kushner's path. Prime Minister Mickoski, you have been extremely patient. What would you like to respond to? Super.
Probably I will have 62 minutes or 62 seconds to answer on the both questions. I'm joking, of course. We have, as a country, fully aligned foreign and defense policy with the European Union. My country is among the 5 best donators per capita for Ukraine. And this is something which is completely different. Also, we fulfill threshold of above 2% for NATO military and ammunition expenditures annually. So we are completely aligned with all requirements when it comes to the foreign and defense and security policy. But also, I must raise this issue that when Russia offensively neglecting and denying Ukrainian identity, which President Zelensky spoke about yesterday, and Ukrainian language, etc., we are all loud, we are criticizing, of course, we are fighting for the rights of Ukrainian people and for this unprecedented aggression that Putin did to Ukraine. But when Parliament of one member state of the EU neglecting and denies Macedonian identity and my Macedonian mother tongue, then everybody is silent. I'm wondering why.
Maybe because there's no invasion accompanying it.
Everybody knows I'm talking about Bulgaria, of course.
No, I know.
And when about the answer of the second question, what we will bring to Europe, Commissioner Kos talked about reunification. We are not talking about any more enlargement, so and we are unification. And practically Europe will not be complete without all European countries in it. So I think that this process will last until the moment when all aspirant countries will be on the table together with the EU member countries.
Thank you. We're out of time. Commissioner Kos, I'm going to ask you just one question. We don't have the time to answer the rest. What is your sense of a realistic timeline for the Western Balkans to accede to the EU and for Ukraine? What do you think?
I can't speak because there are differences between the countries on the Western Balkans, but during my mandate we could bring 2 or perhaps 3 countries to the end of the accession process, meaning closing all the negotiating chapters.
Bye.
And if I may say one remark, for the Western Balkans, it was states. Some of them have been more easier to become a member of NATO than the member of the EU. Now we have the opposite with Ukraine and the other part. So why is this happening to us?
So which 2 could you bring in, and in which timeline?
According to the merit-based principle, until now there are Montenegro and Albania, which are front runners, but one we will start rolling with North Macedonia. North Macedonia could be on a very, very quick
And you remain with your timeline 26-27?
This was for Montenegro and Albania.
That's what I mean. Okay, thank you very much.
If I may, one remark. Only one remark. I can remember those voices 6 years ago which tried to convince us, change your name, and since you are front runners, within a period of 4 or 5 years, you will become a member of EU. I wish luck to Montenegro and Albania, but please don't share our experience. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank
you. The only new name that we can accept is United States or Canada.